Alright, back here today working on this little C10 pickup, doing some vintage air, except for the vintage air requires you to take off the original box and run your lines through, I believe it's through here, which on this one we can't do because it's airbagged and it's got 22s on it, so I had to move the AC system to a 22-inch wheel. It comes up and actually hits the driver's side. It's hitting right here. Passenger side, it's actually hitting this lip and chewing the tire up. So we're gonna cut. I've already marked out here and I started cutting. I thought, well, this would be a good video on how I would tub a C10 pickup and mess with the AC stuff. You can see we ran a bulkhead over here. So what we had to do is change the hard lines, and our tub's going to come into here. Basically, we're going to take this chunk of metal out right here. I've already started cutting. There's an inner wall in here. We're going to have to try to figure out how the firewall is attached to, I believe it feels like there's a, I've peeled back the carpet and just wadded up here and put a welding blanket over it, so hopefully we don't get no slag marks. Same with the seat. You can see where we're cutting in, but we have to get away from this darn kick panel. You can see I've cut into it a little bit. So what I'll probably do is I'll try to figure out how to cut that inner kick panel without getting into that hole for the fresh air vent, and go ahead and pull this off and do some more cutting. Alright, so we got a pretty good hole cut in our firewall now. Basically took that chunk and got rid of it. We'll come back and I'll trim this here so it goes straight down and kind of more in with the firewall or the toe pan. Same thing here. We'll probably do something fancy here. We'll get rid of this little tab, and we've hopefully cut this back far enough to not be an issue. We'll end up making a piece of metal that rolls. Hopefully put the tire on there and kind of get the roll even with the tires, or metal will kind of follow the contour of the tire. We'll have to fill this in somehow. Hopefully, if all luck, we got this carved out enough to get our wheel and a piece of metal in there to work as a tub. Alright, so I've got the tire sitting in there, put it back on. Got our panel made here. So, but I think that's going to be enough. So I think the next step would be to try to push this up. I'm going to mark this line on my new panel, and then I'm going to put it in the brake and brake it so it comes up, it rolls up, and then sits flat up against the firewall, and then we'll clean this up and drill some holes and spot weld it, kind of like how the factory would have done a spot weld. Give it kind of the factory look, like maybe it could have been. But looking, I got my whole hand in here. Got the new piece sitting in there. We're going to clear our hoses. We've got our holes drilled, so our firewall comes just past here, and this upper piece here is overlapping. Same on the bottom we got down there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start welding this and this in, and when I get to here, I'll cut and hammer and bend this over. Whatever I got to do to get the inner panel, the truck panel, our aftermarket, our panel. I'm hoping I could kind of bend this around and tweak on it, and then we'll have to make a filler plate for here. ahead and cut this part out of our overlapping panel that comes from Vintage Air. Alright, so I had a couple different ideas, but I ended up taking a piece that was flat, putting a 90-degree break in it, and then stick it in the shrinker and stretcher. Basically, those there, and was able to shrink this flange in on itself, which created the arc this way. This was cut good until, you know, this piece was out to here. I decided to move my tub over a little bit further. I just thought that it probably would look better in the long run, because from the top now, that bar, that brace, that bottom cab brace, which goes down and meets the body mount, it's just going to be a little more squared off to that rather than coming up and zigzagging over. I'll come back and I'm going to cut this edge off, push this in and weld it. You can kind of see right here where there's a little bit of a gap. I'll trim this down and weld this to here. I'm going to trim this down to where this firewall meets our new panel, and then I'll weld it, and then I'll have to make a little piece to weld in there. And that will pretty much, and then I have to do something on the inside where this bar comes down, kind of comes down like that. Was that inner kick panel that we were fighting earlier. This out to make enough room for our tub. And what we'll do is I took a piece of metal that I broke into at 90 degrees, and what we'll do is we'll come back here like this, and we're going to add some arc. So we need to cut this off about there. Let's give ourselves a little bit. Let's cut it off right about where my thumb is. Add some arc to it by stretching this lip. That should create an outer curve. By stretching that out, basically I'm taking the metal and forcing it out, will create an arc this way, and hopefully that will fit inside on our kick panels. Firewall cleaned up, and now you can see I've got this thing bent in a couple different directions there. I'll get it clamped in there, and I'll clamp it down with a pair of vice grips and weld it, and then hammer and dolly, move my vice grips, get it tight as I can. I should pretty much finish this up for the welding on this side. About an hour before I get out of here, so I won't weld on the rig, especially anything that's together like this still has some interior and stuff in it. Unless it's just a bare shell, I won't weld on it up till the last minute. I usually give it 45 minutes to a half hour to an hour, just to kind of make sure, come over here and look a couple times, make sure nothing's smoking, make sure nothing's on fire. It would be a bummer to go home and come back and think it had burnt to the ground. We did get the passenger side all welded up, so now we just got to do, we did some grinding on the outside, and we'll buzz it down with some 80 probably on the DA or 180, and then seam seal it. Probably put some kind of a bed line, undercoat or something on there. That I haven't figured out yet, but we'll get it sealed up, primed, or some sort of something on there to keep it from rusting, and we'll work on the driver's side tomorrow. So far, here's what we got. We got that tubbed in here. Didn't hit our heater hoses with no saws, or didn't burn them with the welder. Then we've kind of welded that L bracket in there to cover this gap. It was easier to do that, and it kind of resembles like what the factory would have done. Time you seam seal that up, it'll be pretty good. Welded in. We're not too worried about this, so we're going to put the Vintage Air block off plate here, and I'll just have to cut it around here and then cut it around here. That will be after we seam seal it. We're going to seam seal it and put some primer or something on there. Anyway, that's kind of what we got going on. That's what we did today on a C10 for tubbing out for a 22. So, like these videos, this type of crap, give us a like, a subscribe, and remember, get out there and create something today, even if it sucks. Peace.